Well, good morning, Michael.
Good morning. How are we?
All right, how are you?
All good. All good.
Good. Good. I feel like, Michael, we have been in this place and doing the show before.
We have.
Uh,
Happy Friday vacation.
so this is exciting because all three of us today and our guest Deb is traveling this week. So you guys get to see the inside of hotels this week. And we're in Nashville and Deb's in Denver, but it is so great to be here for Experience Friday Live. Hey, Michael, why don't you jump in a little bit and tell them why experience matters and what that looks like and why we're so passionate about it.
Yeah. So this week, it's all about the win-win. That you can focus on experience both as a business case because it can help you make money, and it's the right thing to do as a human for humans. So I love the idea of looking at what a win-win can be. That, a lot of times people are like, if you're a decision maker and you're like focusing on experience, yeah, we do that. Great. It's just a cost of doing business. Here we go. No. It's a way to make more money. It's a way to save money by retaining more employees. It's a way to have better loyal customers that keep coming back again and again, like some of the folks that we've had on the show talk about. And then to do that, we know the best way to do it is a full court press of an ecosystem, that it's not just about making some training happen for your frontline workers and call it customer service. It's about looking at the entire experience ecosystem and first thing, defining what it is for your organization, and then figuring out how to develop all of it. And so if you look at all those people, touch points, and systems that come together to interact, to make some experience for humans, it's everything from employee experience to customer experience, but it's also the digital experience and supply chain and vendors and being aware of your competitors in the marketplace and what's your culture like. You got to pay attention to all those things, which I think is a really good segue to meet with Deb today, because she is all over all of this and has a really fun graphic for us to look at that I think is a good companion to our experience ecosystem.
Yeah, I love it. I love it, Michael. And, we have a comment from Corey who says, I'm all about the win-win, Michael. So this is leading up to everything today. So without further ado, I'm actually going to bring her up on stage and then read her bio so people see Deb. Hey, Deb.
Hey, friends. I love we're kind of in this good hotel aesthetic.
That's
I like
right.
this. I like where we're going with this.
That's right. It's great. Your artwork is a little better than ours behind us, Deb, but awesome. So I want to just give a little bit about you, Deb. For the past 30 years, you are the managing director of Growth Play. You're a coach. You've trained. You've advised organizations to become the place where the most profitable clients, I love that, profitable clients want to buy. The most talented people want to work, and the most inspired leaders want to serve a bigger purpose in their communities and families. Deb and her team leverage humanity-centered design, or HX. We call it human-centered design. Same thing. I love it. To cultivate the mindset, frameworks, and fuel behind the want. Designing the HX in strategic X-led initiatives for clients, employees, and brand is proven to accelerate results and gives humanity a seat at the table to elevate human flourishing and well-being. Holy cow, Deb.
Wow. I know. I hear you say it. It's like,
yeah. So can you just tell us a little bit about what you do and why you do it? And really, and we said, Deb, 60 to 90 seconds, but also you're really in a niche market. And I want to make sure that people understand where you play even. So.
Well, first of all, I'm thrilled to be able to answer the question because I am in a niche market. And I will say for everyone, I make a living teaching lawyers how to be more lovable in the name of revenue generation, client experience, and talent experience. So I work in the legal industry in all things sales and marketing. And I can tell you, as I look at the experience over the last 20 years in consulting, I have been completely inspired regarding the overall transformation that's happening generally in professional services, But moreover, as we look at the introductions of things like CX into the aura of people who both do work and have to sell the work, we're seeing a real explosion of competitive differentiation opportunities, not just in the technical capacities of what are being offered by attorneys and other professionals, but it's really about the emotional and human and relational capacities that are ignited in our services.
Wow. Let me say that first. Like, you work with lawyers and you try
I do.
to make them more human. And I love that. And when I first met you, Deb, that like totally stoked me. I'm like, you're tackling an industry that we and many people have this misconception that these people are heartless, not human, and they care about the dollar. Like, let's call it for what it is, right? Like,
Sure.
that's what people think. And as I've met you and learned more about you, I'm like, holy cow, that's not it.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, well, you in the bio, you were talking a lot about HX being at the cornerstone. And one of the ways that I think we can think about experience differently and in the spirit of the true win-win, if you look at the legal industry and you look at lawyers, I mean, can you imagine how it feels every morning to wake up knowing you're a punchline to a joke, and really jokes that are still really permissible in our day-to-day culture? And yet when I look at from the HX perspective, from the human experience, I step back and ask myself, what of significance or importance in the world? Look at anything that really matters in the world, commercially, in our government, our education systems, and our social justice. Think of something that's important or significant that happens apart from lawyers. And the reality is nothing of significance or importance in the world happens apart from the law or lawyers. So in our mindset, if lawyers as human beings are not the most optimal version of themselves, absolutely at their best and in a state of flourishing, everything important and significant in the world is just less awesome. And in some cases, more detrimental. So I think we can begin to look at things with fresh eyes when we understand the person and the human condition. And so it's a pleasure to get to serve in this industry and do it in a way that also helps generate revenue and make money.
I was going to say, and the win-win there is that there is a revenue generation side to all this. You know,
Right.
you can still make money or even make more money by having a human-centric approach to what you do. Like,
Absolutely.
you know, that I think that's maybe the soapbox for today, right?
Yeah.
For me, is, you know, there is a business case to this, which is why I love talking to you about it.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah, and I'm going to say this: Mofi's going to steal this HX, because if it ain't broken and you find a great tool, we've always said it. I love it, and I want to actually dive into that because you actually have this thing called the X Factors graphic.
Yeah.
And leveraging the X factors. Why, what, you know, we have a question for you. What do you mean when you talk about human flourishing, and how can you elevate human flourishing through all of these X's?
Well, let's start at the foundation. And I think, as Michael, as you were speaking, it's the business case. So when you look at any organization that's going to invest in customer or client experience initiatives, let's face it, we do these things in service to our clients, but ultimately we do it because we want to get more loyalty. We want to get more revenue from our clients and customers. Or when you think about employee experience initiatives, again, we do these things because we want to get the best and brightest talent to pay attention to us. Or when we look at our sales initiatives, how we go to market, how we're engaging with prospects, it's all in the name of getting more sales. And then ultimately, when we think about a lot of our branding and our marketing and our promotion, in many respects, we design those things in order to get recognition. Now, let me stop and say, right, so we're doing things in order to get a benefit. Like, what on the surface is wrong with that? And I want to be really clear. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. And in fact, there's a viability and an importance when we look at successive businesses that we've got to have the mindset of the get in order to sustain value, to create jobs, and to be contributors in our communities.
Right.
When we, though, think about, though, the construct of human flourishing, I want to say that the get, while necessary, is simply incomplete. And when we add a layer of a give, that's when we begin to see impact that goes well beyond the financial and business case opportunities. So again, thinking through those same X factors, what if in the design of amazing customer or client experiences that not only you could get loyalty, but you could also give your client or customer stakeholders more hope, helping them elevate their game in whatever job or role that they play in their organizations. Or when we look at it through the lens of employees, what if it's not only about getting talent, but actually giving a sense of purpose and connectedness and meaning? Or when we look at our sales effort, yes, it's about getting revenue, but it's also about the opportunity to deposit and give wisdom as a part of your selling efforts. And then ultimately we look at brand, it's not only about recognition, we also can generously give a sense of inspiration. So when we design with both get and give, it doesn't cost anything more. And in fact, all it requires is just a different mindset. And it requires courage to think, what if we could do something that would really elevate humanity above and beyond the value that we may be getting as an organization?
And I love the word incomplete. I'm a word nerd. So language matters, experience matters, but language matters, right? And I love even just the framework of get and give as compared to input output, because even input output feels so transactional, where a get and a give feels so empowering and relational.
Yeah.
And that makes a huge difference in how that all plays out. So when you're working with that construct,
Yeah.
Where do you find the biggest point of friction, or the first place you really need to unjam the logs in the flume?
So I think it's a tie. It's two things that create the logjam. I think it's the idea that doing something that might design with the human experience in mind or the give. I think my biggest barrier is the sense that that's squishy, that's a so what, that's not the business of business, right? That's not our work. We're not a nonprofit. We're not in here, doing social good, that we're here as an enterprise. So I think it's mindset and thinking it's squishy. And competing with that as a tie is the idea that designing for human experience is going to be really either expensive or it's going to take away from profits. And what I really want to impart to folks today is that both of those things, while present, are completely irrelevant when you really look at what it is that we're trying to convey by looking at this through the design lens. So we all know about design thinking, right? Human-centered design. And then ultimately, when you look at design thinking begins with a sense of empathy before we go into really understanding, how are we going to really quantify and engage the need? So let me give you just a really quick example. Customer feedback. Most high-performing organizations have gotten the message that to operate absent the voice of your customer is really not an effective way to stay out ahead of the wants, the needs, the trends, the innovations, the product design, all of those things that will allow you with empathy to figure out how do we move the needle for our clients. Yet, whenever we engage in client surveys or customer feedback interactions, let's think about it. We often ask questions that are intended to design things in service, but reality is we're asking questions in order to get information that will allow us to get better at designing products and services and experiences that allow us to get more revenue. So if you layer in HX, if you just add that dimension and you say, well, what would have to be true about the survey exchange in order to create the give? Imagine that while you're collecting feedback, what would it look like to ask questions that allow you to gather benchmark feedback for senior level executives who hold similar positions? Or what would it look like to engage some forecasting or trend information as a part of your survey, purely to capture it and then give it back to not only the clients who generously contributed to your surveys, but actually utilizing that as a benchmark and a tool that will allow these executives to be more influential in their boardrooms, or to give them a sense of confidence in the things that they need to be bringing to the table to elevate their game with regards to peer feedback. That's the essence of the give. It doesn't have to be expensive. It doesn't have to be time consuming. It simply could be the addition of a few questions to a survey mechanism that you're already engaging.
So first of all, points for using the word squishy in a
Right?
valuable business conversation.
I
That was
know.
very impressive.
Highly technical.
Well,
Very,
we love
very
those
effective.
words.
But very, very effective. That's the perfect word to describe it. Second, I, this whole voice of the customer thing, it's moving. It's, talk about a from to, right? It's from the obligatory survey that you're just checking a box to say that you had the voice of the customer. And you've got a data team who's crunching those numbers, trying to give you insights, 3 months after it happens.
Right.
Into rethinking a more valuable way to not just create the voice of the customer, but the heart of the customer and the stories of the customer and the lives of the customer and, human, right? Part of the customer, and to show the value there, there is a value proposition to that. So I love that you're knocking into all of it.
Well, and I appreciate so much, we do hear a lot in design world, in any aspect of design thinking, about voice of the stakeholder. And I love the translation from voice of the stakeholder into the heart of the stakeholder, because when we look at the conditions that all human beings are engaging right now, whether it's through the lens of being a client or customer or an employee or a member, in the talent perspective, or even as we look at the broader communities and where we're engaging our brand and our presence in community service and charitable giving and those things, you've got to really understand that we are not in a season that's purely, in fact, one of our challenges is we're in a season where people think that the answers to coming out of a pandemic are all going to be in the name of intellectual problem solving, action planning, process roadmaps, playbooks that we can solve for. And the reality is there is no playbook to respond to a set of conditions that have never existed in the manner in which they have. And in fact, it's dangerous, isn't it? To sort of think, well, we're just going to design our way out of this with action plans and activities and teams, without recognizing that we've got this entire just enveloping need of the human heart and the emotion and the psychology and the well-being of people that are absolutely needing to be cared for in how we're going to design future growth and future opportunities. So I love this construct of voice, or the heart of the client or heart of the customer, as much as it is the mindset or voice.
Well, and that leads to this question, because I think we're getting there and I want to dive deeper into it. How does this approach then to solving problems have a different impact on these organizations than other approaches? I have a Six Sigma background. I all of us have done all these things. Why is this approach, the give and the get and moving, to the heart versus the voice? I think there's something there, right? We hear voice, but really the heart. Why? What's different about that approach?
Well, all right, let's take something that would be universally reviled in any organization from the customer, the talent perspective. Let's talk about billing and invoicing to really test drive this construct of problem solving. So let's just look at it at its surface. Like, who in their mind wakes up and was like, can't wait to send out a bill today, and all right, I got an invoice, can't wait to pay it. There could be no other customer, client, supplier experience that is more reviled and fraught with more issues and more problems and eroding trust and really creating breakdowns in relationships. Would we all agree?
Oh,
yes? Okay. Yeah. So imagine, if you will, if you challenged yourself to say what would have to be true about billing and invoicing that would create a positive human experience. When people get the invoice, they feel a sense of, wow, I can't wait to see what this invoice says. Wow, I can't wait to put in the time and effort to get this invoice out the door. Like, what would have to be true? Now, on the surface, most of my clients would say, well, that's impossible. And then I hold some room and then I say, so let's try it on for size. How do you make this process generous? I can tell you, every time I've facilitated this exercise in a community of executives and employees, it is an amazing opportunity to begin looking at all the effort we could be generous in the space of sending a bill that could be tied to With every time we create a bill, we also create a moment of celebration. There's a recognition system. One of my clients is like, every time we send a bill, we're going to send something consumable. So at least when they get the bill, they've got a good Starbucks. So they've got something to eat. Thinking about this from the vantage point of what if you, in your billing cycle, created visibility to allow your client to direct their own rebate. So if we're going to say, 1% of every invoice is going to be directed to some cause of your choosing, choose it. You think how excited you would be to see how much is in the generosity bucket, so that I'm eager now to open the invoice because I want to see how much money I'm going to be able to direct to the Make-A-Wish Foundation. I mean, it's just an opportunity for us to move away from the known norms and just step back and say the what if sense of things. And that's the essence of design thing. It's the what if and how might we? And so this is one of those areas. So when you ask how is this going to have a radically different impact on problem solving? Well, it just opens up access to wackiness in a way that actually could happen. It is actually possible for joy to be associated with an action that is universally neutral to negative. So this is the way of, I think, thinking differently, but it requires you to have that design element to put humans or humanity at the table.
And to break that down, I hear you talking both about the EX, the employee experience, and the CX, right?
Yes.
The customer experience. One of my favorite quotes that I ever heard, and I know we've got some pharmacists listening, the pharmacist didn't get into the business to count pills, right?
Yeah.
They got into the business to help people. So even people that are in accounts payable or accounts receivable, right? They got into that not necessarily to do spreadsheets all day. They might like spreadsheets, but there's a deeper mission, a deeper purpose within them, which goes back to what you were saying in your bio, right? There's something about keeping the business humming so that it works for everybody and benefits everybody, right? It's working with people to give them plenty of notice about what they owe so that it doesn't hurt them. Like there are plenty of ways to find out why people got into the work that they do, and to find both a missional aspect, but to your point, a joyous access point as well.
We know, at the risk of being overly, sort of cliche in the lexicon of our current world, this construct of superpowers and being superheroes, I'm going to lean into this in a manner not to be cute, but to be really essential. If you can create that level of connectedness, right? So if you've done everything you can to really get the best and brightest talent, but to put energy in designing for purpose and helping everyone find their purpose and helping them connect the dots to see themselves as a superhero in the ecosystem in which they're operating in a manner which could give them the sense that that accounts payable clerk may be the only voice of empathy and reason and opportunity in a way that can hold space for people when they're having to navigate financial insecurities or instabilities or a level of external circumstances that are negatively impacting a capacity to pay. Like people, when they engage or buy, or, they know they need to pay an invoice. They know that they need to pay for services or products that they've received. There's nobody that's feeling great about being delayed. There's nobody that's feeling terrific about being arrears. So if you can begin to understand that, an accounts payable clerk is responsible for this function in work, but that's not connected at all for purpose. And the power of that, again, it doesn't cost anything more. It just requires you to stop and say, well, what would have to be true? I'm going to give one other quick anecdote, if I may. I worked many years ago with a packaging company, and they were glass manufacturers, and they produced these little glass valves that were principally used in the pharmaceutical industry, to tie it all together with pharmacists. Having an incredibly difficult time with quality and really creating high degree of waste, and manufacturing glass is just it's a whole conundrum in and of itself when it comes to stopping and starting the processes. So we were looking for a whole variety of ways to add, totally quality management system, Six Sigma. We were coming at it initially from the vantage point of process improvement. And then we wisely stepped back and we said, talking to the frontline stakeholders, what it was about their job, what it was about the work. And for the most part, all of them were like, it's a way to make a paycheck. It's what is necessary to, keep food on the table for my family. Well, it wasn't until we started to make an understanding that one of the products they were making was a glass valve that was used in pacemakers. And so overnight, we began to see the connectivity between that little small piece and the fact that how it was saving lives. Now, you should only expect wildly successful outcomes. Quality improved by 20% almost instantly because we had the connectedness to purpose. And the same thing can apply for any other stakeholder, right? It's in the sense that customers may be buying something from you and think of this as a transaction. But what if you could help them see that they're not only buying something for you to solve for a professional need or a problem, but they're also engaging with you so that they become the best professional. They become more promotable. They increase their personal brands and effectiveness. If they're getting that like a gift with purchase, that's what happens when we design with purpose and we design with HX.
Yeah, I mean, I want to jump up and shout and all that things that are probably being inappropriate here, because that's the core of what I learned when I was at Disney, Deb.
Yeah.
Right? You just
Right.
And our friend Hannah Williams, we just had her last week on the show. We've talked a lot, and Michael and I are all about that. Design with purpose. And organizations and leaders have to start to think that way now. It is no longer check the box type stuff. Because those businesses are going to go away. In the world we live today, if you don't design with purpose, you are not going to be in existence. I will put that out there in the airwaves here, that organizations will start to go away if they're not designing with purpose, because of the world we live in. We all want a purpose right now. That's why we're in the world of the Great Resignation, or and I hate to say, I try to flip it from the Great Resignation to the Great Fulfillment, right? Because I think people are resigning from jobs to move into something that fulfills them and brings them purpose.
No doubt. And Shawn, here's another one to try and precise in the name of pithy phrases that will pay. I'd love to see the Great Resignation to be the Great Restoration. In our capacity to create meaningful experiences across all of our X factors, so that people can be restored to fulfillment and purpose, and do it in a way that has the added benefit of tackling social issues, justice issues, mental health and well-being issues. All of those things are possible when we flip and design with purpose in mind.
I love it. One last question for you. What trends about HX, we'll put HX, we usually use customer experience, but what trends about HX do we need to be paying attention to for 2022 and beyond? I think I know what you're going to say, but want to hear it from you.
All right, I'm going to start with number one. I think that if anyone who's listening to this, to absolutely beef up and understanding the cost and consequence of what is being seen as the shadow pandemic. Many experts are anticipating that the cost of depression, anxiety, addiction, and suicide will actually peak in 2024, and that the mortality rates could be even greater than people who've lost their lives for COVID. We cannot design apart from the large mental health and well-being crisis that is surrounding us, and in many cases won't even be realized until the low-grade trauma is over, and now we have to navigate the realities. And that is going to affect, think of stability or instability in supply chain, our customers, teams, and employees, our well-being, our plus ones. I think that's going to be critical. And then the second thing is, I think we have to design with that Gen Z. I think we've got to be looking at customer experience through the lens of someone who doesn't make a living in the same manner in which we do. You think about the gig worker and the innovation that's coming with how human beings relate to work. I think we've got to really think about customer experience and human experience through that lens as well.
When I'm at home, I have pom-poms. I don't have them here. So it's like my jazz hands. There you go. I love it. Hey, Deb, thank you so much. And you know, you're going to be one of those that we bring back too. You're just dropping nuggets with us, and people are loving it. Just to be able to get a hold of Deb, www.growthplay.com is her organization. You know, she's bringing amazing things here with the HX. So thank you so much, Deb. And if you'll hang out, we'll close up the show, and we'll have a conversation with you afterwards. So thanks. Hey, Michael, just for everybody else, mofi.co. If you want to come and reach out to us, we're more than happy to talk with you, or at ShawnNason.com. You can send us an email at hello@mofi.co. Provide any feedback, questions you want about any of our shows, as well as our podcast, The Combustion Chronicles. You can connect with us on LinkedIn, Shawn Nason or Michael Harper. And most importantly, that if you play in the experience ecosystem, we want you. We would love to have you on this show, just like you've heard Deb today. Would love to hear your stories and your experiences. As well, I forgot to do this at the top of the show. Next week, we drop our 55th episode. Wow, 55, Michael. Experience design at the pace of change. Just what we were talking about. It's another one of our 3-person segments. Next Wednesday, that will be out. And then next Friday, we have Shawn Hughes, the global product growth and innovation evangelist, that's going to be here with us. So we're so excited for that. Michael, thank you. Have a great weekend. And thank you to everybody else.
Take care.